Thank you, Ezra. The title of my sermon today, maybe, is Unintelligible Sounds of Frustration. So we are on sermon 4, if I'm counting right, of our 9-sermon series on joy. Each week we show our list of sermon topics. The first sermon, as you may remember, was Go Therefore and Spread Joy. It talked about why we should choose joy. And the next 8 sermons are about all the things that pull us off of joy. That first Sunday we talked about shiny things that pull us from our priorities. Last week we talked about put-downs that can put you on the ground and cause you to forget your joy. And today we are talking about all the ways that we tend to reschedule joy. Thank you, Travis. So if you want the 4-word version of today's sermon, if you just really don't feel like tuning in for the whole 15 minutes, here it is. Never, ever reschedule joy. And the people said, amen. Okay, great. Now, if you're into, thank you. If you're into another 15 minutes, just stay with me, because I do have a few more things to say about this. I was actually torn between 2 sermon titles. The first one is the one that's printed here, Unintelligible Sounds of Frustration, which we all know what that means. We all have our own version of our unintelligible sounds of frustration. You know, the noises we make when we're trying to make up excuses so we don't have to do something. Mine are different for everything, but I think my go-to is something like, no. Yeah. And we all have our version. Everybody's is different, but that's kind of the one I go to. And we all understand that concept, and I love that title. But I also realized this week that it kind of goes more to sound effects than it does actually to the message itself. So I'm going to lean into an alternative title this time that goes with the one that's printed, and this title is called Oliver's Lemonade Stand. This summer, when Toby and I were out at our cabin out in Wisconsin, one of the goals that I had in mind was to get in really good shape. I just needed to get in shape, right? And so I started training for some shorter triathlons, which you all know involve 3 events. It's swim, bike, run, and in my case, that means walk fast. There's probably not running in my future at this juncture anymore, but nonetheless, for the bike training part, I had this great 20-mile route that went all through farmland and just kind of beautiful fields and little tiny neighborhoods all around. And the story I'm about to share took place over a 2-week period as I was training for my first race. So, first day of bike training. I'm on the last 5 miles of my route. My time is much slower than I wanted it to be, so I started kicking some speed in for that last 5 miles. And as I rounded the last turn before I was to head home, I see in front of me a little boy, probably 7, holding a giant sign, cardboard, hand-scrawled, Oliver's Lemonade Stand, 25 cents, jumping up and down with the sign, pointing at the sign like this as I'm flying past on the bike. The bubble over my head, my thought was, oh my gosh, that's so adorable. But, no. I'm off my pace. I don't have time to stop. I can't do it right now. Just not today. So I waved and I smiled and I kept on riding. 5th day of bike training, same course. I'm on the last 5 miles. And for the whole ride before, I've been mad at myself because before I started the ride, I just had to go to the local diner and eat a giant plate of chocolate chip pancakes. There it is. And so as I round the last turn before I head home, there's Oliver with the sign, jumping up and down. Oliver's Lemonade Stand, 25 cents, whoa! I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't, no. I've already eaten 4 times the calories that I'm allotted today, and I don't want to add another 5,000 for this sugary lemonade. So I, smiled and waved. I was like, bye, hey, and I kept going. 8th day of bike training, same course. Before my ride that morning, Toby and I found out that we lost a dear friend to cancer. We were both devastated to hear it. So for most of the ride, I was basically kind of teary and sad. And now I'm on the last 5 miles, and as I round the last turn before I was to head home, there's Oliver with a sign jumping up and down. Lemonade stand, 25 cents. And I just thought, no. I mean, I'm just too sad to buy lemonade. I'm just not in the mood. You know, it's not the time. I'll get him later. And I smiled and I waved and I kept riding. After I got home that day, I just couldn't get Oliver out of my mind. I mean, I just started feeling so guilty. I'd passed this little boy 3 times. Really? Come on. What's wrong with you? And so I jumped in the car and I drove back over there, all ready to buy lemonade and spread joy. And he was gone. And the lemonade stand was closed. I sat there in the car and I couldn't help but think of the words from my comedy partner, Rabbi Bob Alper. He used to always share this quote from the Jewish Talmud. When we are called in front of our Maker, we will each be held responsible for all the opportunities for joy that we ignored. I mean, think of all the excuses that we come up with to reschedule joy, to delay it, to ignore it, to deny it, to put it off. I mean, and basically they're kind of the same excuses that I used with Oliver. You know, I don't have time to feel joy right now. I just don't have time. There's work to be done. There's money to be made, projects to be finished, laundry to be done, bills to be paid, bike races to be finished. I have more pressing things to do, but I'll get to it. The opportunity will always be there. How many times have we said that only to find the moment gone? And honestly, what's more pressing than taking time for joy? We like to think we have all these pressing things to do, but do we really? I had to laugh when I read a recent Newsweek report that said the average person spends about 60 minutes per day simply trying to find their belongings. Can I have an amen? I'm not really sure we're spending our time on stuff that's really that important. Or what about the other excuse I came up with? I've got to do thus and such before I can experience joy. I mean, how many times have we done that? Rescheduled joy because we're not ready yet. Saying things like, I'll feel joy when I get this much money in the bank. Or I'll feel joy when I get that job. Or I'll feel joy when I get that relationship. Or I'll feel joy when I get that hairstyle or wear those clothes or learn that language. Or in my case, I'm going to feel joy through a glass of lemonade when I get off those last 7 pounds. I mean, much of life is spent trying to get to a place that is not this place. I'm going to say that again because I need to hear it. So much of life is spent trying to get to a place that's not this place. I want to read you a little mantra that I recently discovered. I personally find this so powerful. I hope you do too, but I read over this a lot in my own life. It's not the place or the people that brings you unrest. It's you. Peace and satisfaction are something you carry with you, not a missing piece to be found in another location or in different circumstances or with different people. Work with the circumstances you find yourself in, no matter how unpleasant, how discouraging, how limited, how unending, and stuck as they may appear to be, use their energies to transform yourself before you decide to cut your losses and move on. It's right here that the real work needs to be done. You must be willing to let life, as it is right now, be your teacher. I need to read that like 14 times a day. Don't reschedule joy because you're waiting for a place that's not this place. Of course, there's the third excuse I threw out there. I'm in too much pain for joy. You know, Some people think searching for joy in a time of pain is superficial, irresponsible even. It feels like maybe we're ignoring the pain by trying to find joy in pain, or ignoring the fight, or ignoring something that needs to be done. But the truth is, joy empowers us to stand in the pain. I mean, I said it last week, joy brings strength, and strength brings change. You know, in the past couple of weeks, the New York Times has featured a couple of different stories about comedians using joy in times of pain. And they're focusing on comedians in war-torn lands or in crisis areas. One of the articles focused on Ukraine, where there's a new crop of stand-up comics performing their stand-up in places like the war-ravaged city of Kharkiv, or for troops near the front lines in the east, or in bomb shelters in Kiev. As part of their routine, they are actually auctioning off these random kind of funny things to raise money for the war effort. So in the routines, they're auctioning off things like an empty Ukrainian grocery bag that they found floating in the street that day, or a tiny piece of lint that they found on stage left, or stolen maple syrup from Canada, or keychains made of downed Russian missiles. These comics are using joy to lift people's spirits, but more importantly, empower them and build community. One of the comedians said, "I must do jokes about the war because I feel a responsibility." Joy brings strength, and strength brings change. Oh, but no. We can find every excuse in the book to reschedule those opportunities for joy. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I don't deserve joy. Oh, I'm in too much pain. But as we have all found out, those opportunities for joy are fleeting. And if we don't watch out, they will vanish before our eyes. Oh, I'll stop for lemonade another time. And yet, in the blink of an eye, the lemonade stand is closed and gone. Oh, I'll spend more quality time with my kids, and yet, in the blink of an eye, they're 18 and gone. Oh, I'm going to spend more time with my loved ones, and yet, in the blink of an eye, they've passed on and are gone. Our scriptures today that Ezra read for us warn us of the exact same thing. John, Jesus' words, as long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. Or Luke, Jesus' words, be dressed and ready for service and keep your lamps burning. Or the words of King Solomon in Proverbs, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day will bring. I'm also reminded of the beautiful Jewish prayer I've shared before. Days pass and years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. As we close our message today, you know we got to go back to Oliver. We just can't leave it there, right? So a few days later, after I went to find him and he was gone. A few days later, I was on one last ride before my race. I was on the last 5 miles, and as I made the last turn before I headed home, there was Oliver. He was back, and he had his sign, and he was jumping up and down, and he was like, lemonade, 25 cents, and this time I stopped. His eyes got so big. I think I scared him that I actually stopped. And he just looked at me, and I got out, and I was like, are you Oliver? And he was like, yes. I said, well, can I have some lemonade? And he said, really? I said, yes, I want some lemonade. So he poured me this big glass of lemonade. He was so excited. And I drank the lemonade, and we visited for a minute, and then I handed him a $5 bill, 25-cent lemonade. And he just stared at it and said, I think my mom has change. I was like, nope, keep it. Just make sure you keep making lemonade. And so I got on my bike, and I rode down the road, and I have a little rear view mirror on the helmet. And I just happened to glance in the rear view mirror, and I saw Oliver looking down at the $5 bill, and then he put it on the little box, or in the little box on his table. And then he did this. I almost fell off the bike. I was laughing so hard. And I went home and told Toby about this. I was like, oh my gosh, just see that. I wish I could have just freeze framed that in the rear view mirror. Sometimes it takes so little to bring so much joy. Never, ever reschedule joy. Never, ever reschedule joy. There's nothing more important and nothing more powerful. So I'll leave you with this thought. As some of you know, the Mets, like that transition? Yes, yes. Hey, if you're Yankee fans, congratulations, you're already there. God bless. We aren't yet. So the Mets are in the running to be in the World Series with the Yankees. And Toby reminded me of a story this week of one of the great Mets players from the 1969 World Champion team. It was a relief pitcher named Tug McGraw. Now, some of you may know that name, but if you don't, Tug McGraw was the father of Tim McGraw, the actor and the great country singer, right? So Tug was a relief pitcher back in the day, and the Mets' record before 1969 was one of the worst in the history of baseball. But that magic year, 1969, Tug coined a phrase as they began to win and win and win more, and he coined a phrase that's used to this day by Mets fans. You gotta believe. You gotta believe. Friends, we gotta believe. We gotta believe in the power of joy over pain. We gotta believe in the power of love over hate. We gotta believe in the power of good over evil. We must take every opportunity we are presented with to find joy, to feel joy, to share joy, to spread joy. We got to stop our unintelligible sounds of frustration. No more excuses. Because as Galatians 6:9 teaches us, let us never become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And the people said, Amen. Amen.